Hi everyone, my name is Sam. I'm a developer at Benchmark Studios, based just around the corner on Brick Lane, seems to be moving even closer. You can find me on Twitter at SamJBMason, and also GitHub is my name on SamJBMason. Got a few projects up there, but there'll probably be some more in the next couple of months. Feel free to get in contact with me, fairly open, easy person to talk to, I think. So today I'm here to talk to you about Git and GitHub. Git is a version control software. There are other variants of it, of version control software like SVN, Subversion, and more called Mercurial. I've never really delved into the other two, so I can only give you first-hand knowledge about Git. What it does allow you to do is it creates its own kind of workflow. It kind of sits under the surface and looks at all of your tools on all of your projects, on a per project basis, basically, and will give you. It allows you to do lots of things. First off, it allows you never have to worry ever again about deleting something and it being lost forever into the abyss of, well, to the point where you can't command V back. You can take snapshots of your code, you can collaborate with other people on it, it allows you to merge that code really easily, it's very clever under the hood. Thankfully you never have to see that, you just have to run a few commands. GitHub is a web service that uses Git to share your projects and your repositories. It allows you to collaborate with other people, it basically gives you a nice kind of layout on the web to look at your files, look at your project, share it with other people, gives you that kind of granular access to it. But I'll talk about both of them a bit later. So first off, because this is a Untangle web, I'm not going to go into too much technical detail about Git, even though it's a very technical thing. I'm basically going to try and tell you why it's good to use, why it's become so popular, and I suppose a little bit of the workflow that I use, as well as some of the kind of basic commands that get me by on a day-to-day basis. Now I know a lot of my projects are quite small, there might be only myself working on them on their own, or there might be 2 or 3 other people working on it. So I know that other companies have huge workflows that involve a lot of the other parts of Git that I will never come across or will very rarely come across. So a bit of background, what is Git? Well, it was started by a guy called Linus Torvalds. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. He's basically the guy who created Linux, which is a huge operating system and is ran on, well, Macs run on it and everything else, or web server runs on it, as well as many other things. He was a bit sick of the way that current kind of code control or code versioning was going on. You always needed to be connected to the internet. There were loads of conflicts happening everywhere between the different people collaborating on it. So he created Git, as all the clever people decided to do in the end, they just created their own tools. He basically kind of created a set of, Git is kind of comprised of loads of different parts of it that you can use. You can pick and choose which ones you want to use. Some of the commands you'll only ever need once in a blue moon, some you'll use every day. It basically, so yeah, it'll run, it's a very nice piece of software. It basically abstracts all of the complicated parts away and gives you, I don't know, 6 or 7 commands that you'll run on a day-to-day basis that allow you to manipulate your code, fall back to other versions, see a history of all of your previous commits, and also help you collaborate with other people. It can also be used as a mechanism to be kind of putting code up on the internet and pulling code down from the internet, but that's kind of more into the kind of technical side of it. It also helps you not end up doing this on a project. This might not be familiar with everyone, it might be. I've seen projects that have ended up like this, and I know that I'm definitely one of the culprits of it up until about a year ago, where you'll create a project with all the best will in the world, it'll be really nice, really clean, and you've got all the files that you need, and you know where all the code is, and then a client or a teammate will ask you to do a new feature, or they don't like this, can you change it? So you end up diving into your code, hacking about, adding stuff in, ripping stuff out, creating new files, hoping that this will be the final one and this might be the next one. And in the end, you'll probably end up something like this, where you don't know which file is coming or going, which bit is the proper one, and it ends up just falling apart. It gets even harder when you start working with other people and they start adding their own little bits onto the end of things, like their signature or their initials, and it basically just becomes out of control pretty damn quickly. So Git basically sorts all this for you. You don't need to worry about any of this type of like which file is where, which bit of code is where. It does it all for you, all under the hood, and all you do is run a couple of commands to get it up and running. So now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the kind of few commands that I use, and also how they all kind of fit together in a bit of a chain. So if you ever kind of want to work on a project, it's kind of a good way to get up and running. Also, as a bit of a side note, one piece of information that really helped me understand Git, because it is a bit of a mammoth task to sit down and learn it, was to look at it not as just a tool, as this monolithic tool, but to look at it as a huge toolbox with loads and loads of different small individual tools, and you can pick and choose which ones you want to use, when you want to use them. You don't have to use all of them at the same time. It's very flexible in the way that it works, as long as you keep to maybe 2 or 3 that you have to use. It is a very nice flexible tool. I'll talk about these weird cat things towards the end, for those who don't know. And so the first thing to really do is to get it installed. Now, it used to be a bit of a horrible task, but now it's literally go to git-scm.com, download an installer, you double click it, it runs. It works on Windows, Linux and Macs as well. You might be then used to seeing something appearing in your app folder. This won't happen as it's a command line tool, which instantly will put a lot of people off, and it certainly put me off. For probably about 2 years actually. I kept trying to come to it, I saw the command line, I didn't want to get involved in it. There are other tools, but it just kind of started to blow my mind a little bit, so I always walked away. Git is probably the best thing to kind of learn the command line, or to get started on the command line. It's really, the commands that you use are so obvious, they're very English spoken words. Once you know a few of the kind of flags, they call them, or options, it's really, really easy to use. You won't break anything, you won't break the system running Git commands. Everything that runs on Git is kind of prefixed with Git, so you know that you're running a Git command, rather than something that's then going to delete your entire file structure and crash your computer forever. It gives you nice errors as well, which I know might seem like a weird thing, like a bonus, but it actually is really nice to not suddenly get like thrown a huge command line error that's just a string of numbers and letters and tells you to figure it out, and then you have to Google debug it. It actually will tell you if you spelled something wrong. It will say, did you actually mean this? If you try and run something that maybe should have been before something else, it will tell you actually you should probably run this after, and it will just tell you in a nice English way and print it out to the terminal. There are some GUI, some apps for it. Sorry, I'm not a Windows person anymore, so I can't tell you many Windows ones. But GitHub create their own app, which is a nice simple way to look after repositories. You don't have to use it for GitHub repositories, it sits perfectly well on its own, it's just they created it. It runs on OS X and Windows, and it's free. You can just download it from their site. There's also one called Tower, which I know Keith was mentioning earlier, who uses it. That's a nice one, it's a bit more advanced, and it's got some really nice features, but it does cost you money. There are ones for Windows, I just don't know which ones are the best. So when you've created a project, maybe a sample project, one to kind of kick you off, you'll have your folder structure, your natural folder structure. In the terminal, if you change directory into it, which is cd and then some other commands, if you look it up, you can find it. Once you're in that directory, in your terminal, the first thing to do to get Git kind of up and running in that project is to run git init. This basically initializes, obviously init short for initialize. It basically initializes it. It creates a hidden folder in your kind of project. You don't have to worry about what it does. It just has to be there for Git to know what's going on. You only need to run it once. Once it's kind of created this hidden folder, it's done, it's dusted. You can forget about it after that. You don't have to worry what's in the folder either, because I tried before and I just got more confused than anything. The next one is called git add. They all kind of do what they say. This one will basically add all of your folders using that little dot notation, which will basically add everything from your current folder into Git, or you can do it on a per file basis just by writing the file name after it. This, while not actually kind of saving anything, what it does is it kind of tells Git, right, here are all the folders in the folder structure, start looking at them, start kind of monitoring them for stuff that's changing. And that's all it does, it just monitors them, it's not recording anything, it's not saving anything to any database anywhere, it's just looking at what's going on in your folders. So when you are happy and you've made some changes, or you want to initially commit to your repository or project, sorry I keep kind of using the words project and repo and repository interchangeably, they're all kind of referenced depending on how you name it. Git calls them repositories or repos for short, and projects is just what I call them because I see them as projects. They are just the same interchangeable word. The next one is commit. Now this is the one you're going to use so often. It's the one that you'll use every single time you want to do anything. Like once you've kind of got it all set up, this is the one you'll pretty much be using every single time. Git commit basically commits your changes at that point in time. Everything that's in your folder structure, it commits it to Git. So then your Git knows it kind of adds it to your ever-growing history, for instance. It's kind of commonplace to do an initial commit. So when you've sorted everything, you've added all your files, it's quite commonplace to create a commit saying, right, here's all my blank files, here's all my folders, just one commit, starting point, and go from there. See the little -m? It's now pretty much default now to include, when you commit, you create a little message that is like human readable, so you type whatever you want in there. It's just so that if you come back to it in the future, you say, what was it doing at that point? This message should be a little descriptive message on, you're fixing a bug, you're changing the color of something, anything that the files are doing, be anything you want. It's also pretty useful when you start collaborating with other people because they will have messages and it becomes like a little bit of a stream of consciousness for everyone on the whole project. So basically, yeah, when you kind of commit, it will kind of take a snapshot, it will give it a reference number, like a unique ID. It will tell if you look through the history, your kind of Git history, it will tell you all the files that have been, what's been added, what's been changed, line numbers, character numbers. You can kind of really go into as much granular detail as you want. It also sets you up that in the future, if you decide that actually, I've screwed up, I don't want to be here, you can use that reference number and actually roll back your entire project. So you can, all you do is write a little command, Git command, I need to check out the little number that it gives you, the reference number that you get from the history, and your project, if you're looking in the find tool, will suddenly flash and everything will be back to how it was at that point. You can do it temporarily if you want to go and grab some code that you might have deleted. You can simply kind of go back, grab some code, go forward again and add it back in, and then commit. So basically every single time you want to take a little snapshot and you're kind of happy with what you've just done, you run git commit, nice little message, and it's saved into this kind of ever-growing timeline really. The accepted way is kind of small and often. So every time you do a little small thing, you make a commit and a little small thing, just because if you at any point decide that, oh actually, I kind of want to go back, you're kind of taking a little step back rather than, 20 files later and hundreds of lines of code. You're just kind of rolling back a little bit. So that is pretty much the main one, and that's all of the ones I use, basically, pretty much on a day-to-day basis. All those ones, well, apart from the init, which is just run once. When you start working with other people, and you start collaborating on remote servers, there are two other ones that I use, and they both pretty much say what they say on the tin. First one is git push. When you've made a set of changes on your local version that's on your laptop, you run git push and it will push all of your changes up into the remote server. At this point, when it hits the remote server, it will merge all of the files together, it will merge all the lines of code and sort it. So then at any point, one of your other collaborators, or if you're just using it as a backup, at any point you can kind of go to that server or run your project and run the next one, which is git pull. So if you want to grab changes down from the server, one of your friends might have been working on it for a day or so and you need to catch up, just run git pull and it will pull all the files, all the changes down that they've made and they've pushed up to it, and it'll merge it all in. It's very clever in the way that it does it, and you'll be left with the new folder structure, basically, the one that's on the server. You can then go about committing and changing. Occasionally you will hit what they call a merge conflict, which is where Git can't quite figure out automatically what's happened on the files. Should this go there? Should that line disappear? And at that point you can run what they call a diff tool. There's a few ones out there, a free one that you get on Apple, which is called diff merge. And it basically puts two files next to each other and tells you what's changed in each of them. You can just drag and drop and say, delete this one, keep this one. It happens pretty rarely, to be honest. I've never really been on a project that's happened more than a handful of times. So it's never something that you have to really worry about. And if you're not comfortable with it, someone else on the team generally is. There are loads of tutorials online how to do it. Regarding that, I've given a load of links with more technical stuff to Will, and I believe he'll be emailing them out at some point soon, which has loads of the tutorials that I use to learn the more technical sides of it, like what all the options do and how to get it set up. It has another cool feature that you may use, you may not use. I use it on bigger projects, like Rails, Ruby projects. It's quite useful to use on massive ones where there's a huge folder stack. This is called branching. When you start a project, you have a default master branch. It's basically just automatically created for you. You can see this as like the main trunk of a tree if you'd like. If you like visualizing it like that. All of your old code's at the bottom, all your new code is kind of off reaching into the sky. And say you want to create a feature or a new login page or a new navigation, and it's going to take more than one commit, then the best idea is to create a branch, and that simply clones all of your code off onto this new branch, like a tree would look like, I guess. At that point you can work, you can create your new navigation, you can commit, you can make all these changes on this branch, never having to worry about your default branch. That will always be safe. It never kind of muckies it up or kind of pollutes it, basically. It just stays exactly the same. If you're then happy with it, you say, actually, yeah, this is really good, I'm happy with it, it's been bug tested, I now want to kind of incorporate it back into my stable master branch, you can then just merge them together, and then it all catches up with each other, and your master branch now has that new feature inside of it. Or, if you don't want it, you can delete the branch, chop it off, and it's finished. You never have to worry about it, all the while knowing that your master branch is perfectly healthy and sane and no bugs introduced into it. It's a good way of working, even if it's not a code reason, it's a great way of working of separating your headspace. One day you can be working on a navigation, the next day you can be working on a new page layout, and you know that when you're in those branches, that's what you're working on. It's a great way to kind of understand, kind of get your head in that zone where you're not just darting from file and adding this feature and doing that, you're actually focused on one thing. I found it really useful on those kind of projects. But it's completely up to you how you use it. The brilliant thing with Git is that you don't have to use branches, you can carry on as you are. It is slightly more an advanced feature, but it's easy to do, and all you do is run a simple command to create a branch, and then another command just to merge it back in. So finally, on to the last kind of part, which is about GitHub. Now, a lot of people have said that GitHub has made version control sexy over the past few years. I still don't doubt how much that is true, to be honest, being a developer myself, but each their own. They are a cool company. They're a really cool company. It's basically, you can use Git without ever using GitHub, and even if you want to remote or want to collaborate with people, you don't have to use GitHub. There are other services out there like Bitbucket and source code. It's basically, instead of you going through the hassle of creating a server where you're going to host your Git repositories or your Git projects on that's available to the internet but is secure enough that other people aren't going to hack it and crash your server, GitHub does all that heavy lifting for you, and all it leaves you with is a really nice website that you can interact, you can create your projects at the click of a button, copy a line of code, add it into your terminal, and then your local project and your online one are synced and fully connected, and you can run git push and git pull, and it will push it all up to that. It's got a lovely interface. It's really kind of easy to use. They help you all the way along with it, saying, do you want to do this, do you want to do that. You can even now edit your code live in the browser, and I've made those commits to it quite recently. You can give people access to your repository, your project, and they simply, so you can add a user, and they then have kind of push and pull powers to your repository. It's got some great, nice features. So it's got a bug tracking thing built right into it. So each project gets its own bug tracking feature and issues feature. It's got its own built-in wiki, which is a really nice one. It also has a really nice feature called Pages, which allows you to, if you create a nice open source project that you want everyone to use and download, it allows you to create a static website for it, so a presentational website for it, all for free, and it's all version controlled because it's all built directly into the project, and it's free. Every single part of that is free. The only part you have to pay is the private repositories, but Bitbucket allows you to make private repositories free. So if you kind of want to use both of them interchangeably, it's quite a good way. If you want to have something that's private and then move it to public, you can use GitHub. It's got a brilliant community around it. It has a nice feature called what they call forking. It's forking, not the other word. Basically allows you to, any project that's online, you can fork it and it will clone that repository, copy it to your profile. So you basically have a copy of it, an entire copy of that open source project. You can then, at that point, you can chop and change it, change what you want without ever having to worry that the original people are ever going to worry about it breaking their side. If you do find something that you would like to fix and they've broken something and you think that you can fix it, you can issue a pull request, which allows you to kind of create a bit of code and push it to that original one, and they can accept it or decline it depending on how they feel or whether they think it's worth it. It's a great way to kind of get involved in open source projects and meet other developers and designers. Designers use it as well. You'll find a lot of big open source projects on there now. I know WordPress has a mirror on there now, and I know that things like Twitter Bootstrap pretty much run off it. And the teams who built GitHub create some really nice tools as well. They're all open source, you can always download them. And yeah, it's a nice way to get into the community because issuing pull requests never seems like you're kind of in that dark, eerie IRC room, like internet chat room, talking to other developers and wondering, are they going to listen to you, or are you just a guy that's going to troll and help rip that? So it's a nice way to get involved in the community, and everyone's really friendly on it. And if you find that you're struggling, you can create an issue, and someone will always come back and help you out. So that's it really. Once again, if you've got any questions, after you remember them after, feel free to get in contact with me on Twitter. And yeah, any questions? Questions? Got time for questions as well? Yeah, yeah. Cool. So yeah.
I use Git just for saving really, basically, version control. But one thing I really got hang with is pushing to a server, FTP, instead of using FTP.
Instead of using FTP, yeah.
I just can't get my head around that.
I mean, it's quite a, that's something that I just had to kind of get my head around. It's like, what do you do when you finish the project and it's in Git repository on GitHub or wherever, how do you then put it on the server to actually put it live? There are a few tools that you can sign up and that will do this for you. There's one called Deploy Button, which uses it's a free service. There's also another one called Deploy HQ, which is a bit more professional and you have to pay a bit more for. What it basically does is you sign up and you create an account on there, and you hook in your details from your online repository. So if you've got a private one somewhere, you can then, it automatically kind of senses, you type in your FTP details as well for the other server you want it on, and it will, when you push your code up to your repository, it will sense, using like a special receive hook, it'll sense that it's really got any commit push to it, and it'll then push it across FTP in a nice kind of minified way. So yeah, Deploy Button is nice, you can start with that, and then if you want to pay, then I think, yeah, Deploy HQ is a paid one.
what's it called, deploy button?
Hey, deploy button is the free one. You'll notice it's just got a huge button on the front page. Quite ridiculously big. But yeah, so that's quite a good way of doing it. If you want to, you can obviously just grab your local copy and just put it on FTP through that. As soon as you start doing pushing, like moving stuff around on servers with Git, it starts to get a little more complicated. But there are services out there that can handle all the heavy lifting for you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi.
Is there a file storage application on GitHub?
No, not per project. I think there's a soft limit. I think it's about 2 gig, but because it's just files, it's very rarely that you're ever going to get over that unless you're using, I don't know, I suppose unless you've got huge images on there or something like that. But I think it's
thinking about like doing the entire Drupal site, that could be anywhere from 60 megs.
Oh yeah. No, it should handle it fairly easily. As long as you're not putting the content on it and you're just kind of, it's like maybe there's a file called git ignore that you can choose what to ignore when you use Git. So maybe the assets folder or something like that, unless people are needing it. But yeah, I think it's a soft limit. I think they're quite easy about it.
Yeah, 2 gigs.
Yeah. Any more questions?